What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Two Game Podcast. I am Matt Primo, joined by Nick Ziegler
Howdy, howdy.
and Preston Johnson.
Hello, children.
And we are back, continuing our deep dive into the world of Middle-earth, the Lord of the Rings franchise. We have already done the OG trilogy. Fucking great. Like, met my expectations in terms of finally doing that entire trilogy justice. I'm proud of it. But now we're continuing on with the Hobbit trilogy. And then after the Hobbit trilogy, we're going to end it with a season one review, one episode, season one review of The Rings of Power, which I have not seen yet. And also, full disclaimer, I have years ago saw The Hobbit 1 and 2, have not seen the third one. So pretty much going to be a fresh watch for me for this trilogy. So I'm pretty excited. I'm going into it with an open mind, okay? I didn't hate them when I watched them years ago. So I'm just ready to jump back into Middle Earth. How excited are y'all for the Hobbit trilogy there?
I'm excited for this movie.
Oh. he's already starting, Chris. You're going to die, clown.
I like it.
So yeah, this episode... Wait, what was that, Preston?
Oh, no, I was just saying we got some haters in the building.
Indeed. Like always. I mean, we always know who it is.
I like 1/3 of it, okay? 1/3.
So yeah, this week we are reviewing on episode 4, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, the first movie of the Hobbit trilogy. And for the most part, I did not remember anything of this movie up until the final battle. And when it happened, I was like, hey, I remember that. I kind of forgot that was even in The Hobbit. So like I said, this was pretty much a fresh watch for me all the way through. So as we are, what is our deep dive? Our deep dive series consists of recapping and reviewing any property. Typically we do games, but changing things up here, doing some deep dives into the Lord of the Rings franchise. And first off, we're going to go over some fun facts of the movie, and then we'll recap the entire story. And in between, we'll talk about individual scenes. We are not reviewing the books, so we are not comparing, oh, this movie sucks because this wasn't in the book, or vice versa. We're not doing that, but we are using the books to further enhance and expand on the lore that is in these movies. So just keep that in the back of your mind when we have our thoughts and opinions. And in between, like I said, we'll kind of jump around and talk about particular scenes and characters and all that good stuff. So, Nick, you had something you wanted to correct on yourself from a previous episode. So I will let you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, so I misspoke a couple times in the Fellowship review. Specifically talking about Gandalf's staff and how he acquired a new staff after escaping Isengard. I don't know how I screwed this up. I kind of rushed through all 6 movies and The Rings of Power all in like a week, plus reading all 4 books within like a month. So it was kind of like information overload. Yeah, he did not get Radagast's staff. That was in the movies that we're talking about today, but never in the books. And then the explanation on the connection between elves and Mithril is how the Rings of Power series is interpreting it, not how Tolkien had initially interpreted it.
Fair enough. I gotta say, man, and I'm sure Creston agrees with me. I respect your dedication, doing all that shit in like a week or two. Like, I respect it, man.
Yeah, I finished the Lord of the Rings series within a month, and the Hobbit book I read within like 2 or 3 days.
I finished watching The Hobbit today, like 2 hours ago. I was not prepared for this. All right. So, jumping into The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. This movie was directed by Peter Jackson, who directed the OG trilogy, Lord of the Rings. He also directed King Kong, The Lovely Bones, and The Frighteners. This movie didn't get the budget.
It was lower than Lord of the Rings movies, if I'm not mistaken.
And I can guarantee that it made less. It stars Martin Freeman, Ian McKellen, and Richard Armitage. By the way, back to the whole budget thing, me not knowing it. I told you, I didn't come into this being prepared, obviously. It does have a runtime, a theatrical version of 2 hours and 49 minutes, no extended version. The only one that I think, Nick, you said there was an extended version of a third movie on HBO Max?
HBO Max has the extended version of Battle of Five Armies. I want to say there were extended version releases for the first two also, but I haven't seen them.
Yeah, this, unlike the OG trilogy that we reviewed, these are just the theatrical versions. These will not be the extended editions.
These ones were
this movie was released. What was that?
I said these were long enough.
It was released December 14th, 2012. And with that, we will start recapping the story. On his 111st birthday, the Hobbit Bilbo Baggins decides to write down the full story of the adventure he took 60 years before his nephew Frodo. Bilbo writes about how prior to his own actual involvement, the dwarf Thor was king of Erebor and brought on an era of prosperity for his kin until the arrival of Smaug, the dragon. So, again, the recap we're doing for this particular movie is not nearly as long as what we did for the OG trilogy. But with that being said, we're going to be interjecting more often in between. So this is a exposition. This is kind of the exact same thing that happened in the first movie, where we have Galadriel kind of doing a voiceover for what happened previously to the Fellowship of the Ring. I gotta say, not nearly as good or as iconic as the opener in Fellowship, but I do dig the score, and it kind of flows with the storytelling here. Like, it matches up perfectly with what is kind of like going on in the scene, where it's like somber, uplifting, prosperity. And then the score turns more sinister, ominous once it starts like falling to shit and whatnot. What did y'all think about the intro section?
Go ahead, Preston.
I enjoyed it. You're talking about like the flashback to the mountain, the initial arrival of Smaug, when they found Arkenstone, shit like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, for the most part, it was, it pretty much gave you the picture of what you read in the book. And for the most part, there was a few tweaks, but the tweaks they made, I liked, like having Thorin actually in the halls instead of just being out and about, and that's how he, escaped. He was actually in the battle, which, gave it a little more spice, a little more sauce. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a fucking dragon, dude. The dragon gets
Hey, I didn't say I disliked it. I still like it. But that's like saying, like, I don't know, comparing like a B-rated movie to like one of the greatest movies of all time. Like, it's not fair. It's not a fair comparison. What about you, Nick?
It fell flat. I mean, it wasn't a bad story, telling or whatever, exposition, but it kind of fell a little bit flatter compared to Fellowship, and it also dragged on a little bit too long. I mean, I think it took up like 10 or 12 minutes of exposition.
I agree if we're comparing it to Fellowship or any of the Lord of the Rings, but I think as just a trilogy by itself, I think it was pretty decent, Obviously, it's going to have shortcomings if we're comparing it to the OG trilogy.
With that being, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm watching the beginning of this movie, and it was kind of unfair for it. Like, the whole time I'm like, God damn, bro, this is just not as good as the Lord of the Rings. And I'm like, wait, wait, greatest
Yeah,
trilogy of all time. I can't fucking compare it.
yeah. I mean, if you hold that if you hold it by the same light, it's there's no comparison for sure.
Before we even dive into the movie, I think we should probably discuss the issues of even getting this movie started. In comparison to like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This one, they didn't have a year to build Hobbits in advance and get everything going. This one, they had somebody else directing it. He wanted to make 2 movies out of this book instead of a trilogy. The studio was like, no, we're absolutely going to redo Lord of the Rings and we're going to make a trilogy and we're going to make so much money off of this thing. So he quit. And then they went back to Peter Jackson and like, hey man, why don't you come back and direct the Hobbit movies? And he's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can. I think we can probably make out 2 movies out of this. And like, no, we're doing 3. And he's like, oh, okay, we'll do 3 then. And I mean, this is a book that had 300 pages worth of content, which was smaller than any other book in Lord of the Rings universe, and they made 3 movies out of it.
He's already being spicy, sir.
I know. You know what? Initially, when I thought about doing this, I thought it was gonna be, offensive. But if I kind of take a step back and think about it, a lot of stuff he's talking about is right. They squeezed a lot of information out of one book. I don't think that these 3 movies take away from the story of The Hobbit or the book, but and obviously, if you compare them to Lord of the Rings, it's going to be subpar. But if you just look at them as, a representation of just the book, just The Hobbit, I think it wasn't too bad. It was a little stretched out, yeah, for sure. They could have probably got away with 2 movies, maybe even 1. But
I think 1 would have been a little bit too hard to do. I think they could have very easily made this into a 2 movie set and called it good. 3 was just way too much.
Well, I don't really have an opinion on a 3rd one yet, so I can't make that argument there.
Let me just like you said, preface that with the 3rd movie pretty much takes place in about 10 pages.
Yeah. You spend the entire time waiting for them to get to the fucking point. It's a little. We'll get to that though.
Yeah, right. There. Future spoilers, sir. But yeah, like the intro, while not as good, it's not fair comparing it. So like y'all said, like it's a good set. It's a good intro. It's a little heavy in terms of all the shit that they're kind of dropping on you at once. Do you feel like maybe this movie in particular, in comparison to the other movies, this one is just super fucking like exposition and like lore heavy? Like a lot of the questions that we had for the OG trilogy, or let me phrase that, the questions that I had for the OG trilogy, like it gets brought up in this movie. Like they start dropping a lot of lore in this one in comparison to the other 3. Or maybe that's just me.
They heard your questions, man.
Right.
They did.
That's what we call retconning.
So, I mean, do y'all agree, disagree?
What specific lore do you speak of, sir?
I'm just talking about in general. Like, we got all the stuff with the dwarves, all the stuff with the with Gandalf, Saruman, the different wizards that gets dropped in this. I mean, the whole intro section is basically just lore heavy.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they expanded on that, kind of more so away from the book as to be geared more towards, no offense, the casual fans, to kind of give them some background. So I can see what you're saying.
I'm not offended by it.
Yeah, there was a lot. Half of the storyline in this trilogy was not taken from the book. Anything involving the White Council was purely pulled out of other writings. It had nothing to do with the Hobbit series.
And a lot of the Dol Guldur with the necromancer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was like kind of just spoken about, it's kind of understood that he was somewhere near Mirkwood just because of what was going on with the spiders and all the animals leaving and shit, but it wasn't expanded on like it was in the book. I mean, like it was in the movie. Honestly, I kind of liked it though, because you got to see that, all the wargs all gathered up in there.
And that was my weakest part of the movies was the those parts. I
Was,
thought.
was that because they didn't live up to your expectations, or because they weren't aligned more with the book, you think?
I know it had nothing to do with the book because I had seen the trilogy before I read the books, and that was always the part of the movies that fell flat and didn't seem like they really fit into the movie. It was a completely different tone compared to the Hobbit side of it and the dwarf side of it.
I got you.
And then also they leaned very heavy into like the fantasy aspect of it. I mean, stone giants, fucking the three trolls and shit like that. I mean, they had trolls in the first movie, but what I'm saying is they kind of went more heavier into
Yeah,
it.
no, that stuff was in the book too.
It was, and like I had mentioned, I think in our Fellowship review, the Hobbit was the original content for the Middle Earth lore, and it was pretty much just a compilation of bedtime stories that Tolkien would tell his kids, which is why each chapter in the book and each scene in the movie is like Bilbo and the dwarves go on a new adventure, and they go on now a new adventure and a new adventure. It's each story is a bedtime story.
Hold that thought. We're gonna get to that in just a little bit. I have a note for that. All right. So, drawn by the amount of gold that the dwarves have amassed, Smaug destroyed the nearby town of Dale before driving the dwarves out of Erebor. Thor's grandson, Thorin Oakenshield, sees King Thorndil. How you say that name?
Thranduil.
Thranduil?
Yeah.
All right. And his wood elves as a nearby hillside and is dismayed to find them taking their leave rather than aiding his people. This makes Thorin develop an everlasting hatred of elves. Now, Thranduil is the father of Legolas, by the way. So I want to drop in some little lore stuff here that I found with some fun facts. First appeared in the Hobbit book simply as the Elven King, with no mention of his real name. It is only in the Lord of the Rings, when Legolas first appears in the book, that he is identified as his son. So there. Look at me dropping some lore on y'all. My how the tables turn.
That was some more retconning.
Yeah. So we flash forward to where the Fellowship of the Ring started, with it being Bilbo's birthday and him writing his book. Frodo is there, curious if this might be his last day with Bilbo or not. I gotta say, I'm not. Again, so far, and I haven't watched 2 or 3 yet. So just from the OG trilogy and then this one, I'm not going to sit here and say I just flat out hate anything within Lord of the Rings. I mean, we talked about the entries for at ad nauseum in previous reviews, and it's probably my least favorite aspect of Lord of the Rings, but it's definitely not something that I dislike. So when I say this, don't think that I hate this scene. I just don't know if it's needed in a movie. I'm not mad that it's there, but I'm just looking at it from a critical aspect. And I'm just speculating here because I've seen this and the second one. I'm curious if this, like we've mentioned earlier, I'm curious if this, the aspect of adding the third movie will be the ultimate downfall of this trilogy. Because the other one, the extended editions are, I wouldn't say overstuffed, but they are fucking long ass movies. This one, like you said, stretching 300-page book into 3 movies, it feels that kind of overstuffed. Like I said, I don't dislike any of these scenes right here. as it does connect to like the OG trilogy and does a little bit of fan service in the process by bringing back Ian Holm and Elijah Wood. Although Bilbo's wig in this is fucking terrible.
The de-aging technology they used in this scene was fucking terrible.
Yes, I'm looking at him. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with him?
Yeah, no, it was horribly distracting. Now,
I had to go back and make sure it was the same actor. It looks like him, but is it him?
It's like they pulled a Mission Impossible face mask. They just put it on somebody else and was like, this kind of looks like him. Well,
oddly enough, he is 111 now.
Yeah, touche.
I mean, I didn't mind the scene aside from them being horribly distracting with their horrible de-aging technology and makeup. And I actually liked the transition of him sitting on the front porch or whatever, and it transitions to him being 111-year-old Bilbo to being 50-year-old Bilbo.
Now, full disclaimer.
I forgot Frodo was even in this throwback. When I was watching it, I was fucking tired. I thought I was watching the wrong fucking movie, and he showed up.
Am I fucking watching The Fellowship again? Full disclaimer on my opinion of this first 45 minutes of the movie. I had woken up from a 12-hour shift and I had like 4 hours of sleep, and I was fucking falling asleep for the first 45 minutes. So I'd be a little overcritical for the first 45 minutes of this movie. I woke up for like the last 2 hours.
I have been awake for 25 hours minus a hour and a half nap about 3 hours ago.
Well, you got me beat.
Yeah, a little tired.
So, following this, Bilbo is tricked by the wizard Gandalf the Grey into hosting a party for Thorin and his band of dwarves, which doubles as Bilbo's recruitment as the dwarves' burglar to help them recover their treasure and their home from Smaug. And they want to shove a sword right up Smaug's jacksie. Dude, I laughed way too hard when the fucking dwarf said that. I never knew to call it a jacksie, and I feel like that's the only way I can call people's. That's the only way I can refer to it now is jacksie.
I will be using that on my medical reports from now on.
I'm bleeding from the jacksie. So, fun fact: in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the scale illusion was accomplished by placing a Hobbit or dwarf actors and actresses further away from the camera than like Sir Ian McKellen, but still live on the same set. This time, however, the illusion had to be accomplished by having the other actors and actresses on a completely different set, while McKellen performed his part all alone on a green screen set, which after kind of reading that, I'm like, that kind of makes sense because
Did you see the video of him on the green scene by himself?
Mm-mm.
He literally broke down in tears and almost quit.
Oh yes, that was another fun fact that I had seen. But they had a little earpiece connecting him to the performances being provided by the rest of the cast, and then like you said, he ended up feeling lonely, frustrated, and the chemistry, like it's as good as it can get, obviously, but you can tell the chemistry is different in comparison to the OG trilogy. Let's see here. Bilbo reluctantly joins the company on their journey to the Lonely Mountain, Thorin previously believing he would refuse. While at camp, the dwarves explain with another exposition that Thorin cut off the arm of Azog the Defiler, and that Thorin was the rightful king to lead them. And what is probably a total coincidence, orcs are overlooking the campsite and mention that Azog would be happy to hear this. And hear that they located the dwarves as the dwarves are telling that exact same story. So yeah, we'll come back to the whole coincidence thing in just a little bit.
How'd you like the musical numbers
in this particular scene?
In the inside of Bag End, the dwarves singing.
Oh yeah, like the Hobbit theme.
Yeah.
Oh, I fucking love it. That theme song when they sing it and then they incorporate it into the score later on in the movie, so good, so good.
So those were both of those songs, them cleaning the house and them singing about the mountain, were both in the books.
Oh, okay.
And actually, a lot of like even in Lord of the Rings, they do a lot of like the trilogy, the original or whatever, the good trilogy. They the books are filled with people singing all the time.
I heard that little fucking jab there, you motherfucker. But no, I love that whole little. I did have a note originally to mention that song, but yeah, when they were all singing that song together, dude, it was so fucking good. It had like a little Viking esque aspect to it, which I really dig. So two things. After watching this, or while watching this, I learned that Manu Bennett is the one that played Azog. Huge fan of Manu Bennett, by the way. That dude deserves to be in more movies and TV shows than he actually is. Spartacus, Arrow, fucking great in both of those TV shows. He's pretty much unrecognizable in this, other than like his voice, but you probably wouldn't catch it if you didn't know ahead of time.
I did not. I just had to look him up and go, "Oh, that guy, yeah."
Yeah. Deathstroke from Arrow.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I think this is a good point to stop and kind of check in on the three main characters, okay? So we have Gandalf, Thorin, and Bilbo are pretty much the three main ones. Sir Ian McKellen looks much older here, I think. Definitely kind of showing his age. I feel like he took some time to... Like I said, this is kind of the first 45 minutes of the movie until it really gets going. And I feel like it took some time to really get back into the character. But then you kind of realize that he was never on set with any of these people. So now that I know that, that kind of affected his acting, I think. But I mean, regardless, it's still Sir Ian McKellen and he's Gandalf. So, I mean, he's fucking great regardless, right? It's just, he felt a little... It felt like a little off for the first 45 minutes.
I was very glad they did not use the de-aging technology on him.
Well, shit, if it was anything like fucking Bilbo, it would have been fucking terrible. Speaking of de-aging, I don't understand de-aging, man. Like, look, like the one that comes to mind is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. When I de-aged Harrison Ford.
That movie.
Don't do it. Sir, I feel like I love you enough to tell you to don't do that, okay?
I made it to where is it Russians or Germans? Russians?
It's always the Nazis.
Okay. I made it to where Indy meets up with the daughter of the friend and they're in the library and the Nazis are killing people in the library.
It never gets better from there.
Okay.
It gets worse. But yeah, they use the de-aging stuff on Harrison Ford. I'm just like, you know what would be a great idea? Recast it. Do a different movie. Like, stop putting these old ass people in these fucking movies, man. Like, you don't have to de-age them.
Let's keep it on with Short Round movie.
I'd be all for that.
Right.
All for that, because that dude's a fucking good actor. What movie was he in recently? He was in
the one where
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, where he finally got the award.
Yes, he was fucking great in that movie. But he was also in another movie. What fucking movie was it? I had just recently saw. I cannot remember, but as soon as I saw him, I was like, the fucking Leonardo DiCaprio meme. Where I'm just pointing at the screen. I know that guy. So Thorin definitely kind of balances out the cast with his more like rigid personality here and the fact that he hates Bilbo with a fucking passion. So far, he's probably the more, I say interesting, but he's also the more ominous character out of the bunch. He just seems more interesting to me, that I kind of want to dive deeper into his character. Although with that being said, and it's going to segue into my statement about Bilbo, Martin Freeman is definitely the best actor out of the three in this case. He's acting his ass off, and I enjoy his acting and his performance of Bilbo so far throughout the entire movie.
He honestly, any scene that he's in, he steals.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would actually absolutely agree with that. Like I said, take us about 45 minutes for me to really, for me personally, I think it took about 45 minutes for the movie to really find its footing. And I do like where his character is, where he's not like the super courageous Hobbit, where he's, like in the OG trilogy, where he's all about going on adventures and shit like that. He's actually kind of reluctant to do a lot of things. He kind of just wants to chill, has a fucking pad. Definitely the fish out of the water in terms of in comparison to all the other characters. Do y'all have any thoughts on the three main characters before we move on?
Nope, you covered it.
Ed.
All right. So the group is captured by three mountain trolls: Tom, Bert, and William. By the way, I don't remember which one it is, but the voice actor for Bruce, the shark from Finding Nemo, is one of these fucking trolls. Know that fucking voice from anywhere. Fish are friends, not food. Did y'all catch that? Or was that just
I didn't connect them, but yes, I hear it.
He's also the Goblin King as well.
Yes.
But Bilbo is able to stall the trolls from eating them until dawn, when Gandalf saves the company by exposing the trolls to sunlight, turning them into stone. So while we're on the subject of this, how do we feel? And I get it; these are kind of like adventures and whatnot. How do we feel about the voice acting for the trolls in comparison to like the OG trilogy? I don't necessarily mind it because it does kind of bring a sense of humor to the movie. The only thing I'll say is it just doesn't. When you connect the tones of the two trilogies so far, I don't know. The monsters in the OG trilogy kind of spoke with more like aggression, angry, graveled, dark voices, whereas these ones are more lighthearted and humorous. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. What did y'all think, or do y'all even care?
I would prefer them to be different tones, just because that's how they were written. Personally, obviously,
Okay,
they're trying to get in the book. It's more lighthearted because it's children's nighttime stories.
Okay.
All right, Lord of the Rings was written to be a more serious, grown up half of the story. The Hobbit was written for kids.
Interesting. And now with that piece of knowledge, I'm going to continue with the rest of this trilogy in a different light.
Well, and then you're going to notice the issues with the rest of the trilogy because there's an inconsistency in tone.
Okay. Yeah. So just, I don't know. Keep that thought as we move through the rest of this trilogy. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify, you can watch this on Spotify as well, or catch us on any of your favorite podcast listening apps. They search the Troll's Cave and find treasure and elven blades. Thorin and Gandalf each take an elf wrought blade. And Gandalf also finds an elven short sword, later to be known as Sting, which he gives to Bilbo. Being elven blades of the First Age, Gandalf says they glow when near orcs or goblins. However, only Sting consistently does so. The group encounters Radagast the Brown, a wizard who lives in the forest of Greenwood. He tells them of a strange presence he encountered at Dal Guldur. Did I say that right?
Yes. And when we were talking about the elven swords, the reason why Sting is the only one that glows in the movies is when they tried to get Gandalf's sword to glow in the original trilogy, they couldn't keep it from looking like a lightsaber. So then they're like, okay, we're just going to have him have a normal sword. And then for continuity's sake, they kept it that way.
I gotcha. That makes sense. So continuing talking about Radagast here, okay? Asked how many wizards there are, Gandalf says there are 5. I actually had a question about this. I had a little note right here before I did the fun facts and whatnot, and then I answered my question by reading some fun facts. Gandalf says there are 5, naming Saruman, Radagast, and himself, and then saying he can't remember the names of the other two, merely saying the two blues. Their names, Alatar and Palando, something like that, appear in the book Unfinished Tales, a collection of J.R.R. Tolkien ideas in half manuscripts, edited into book form by his son Christopher. The filmmakers did not have the rights to use that material from that book, so the two blue wizards remained unnamed in this movie. So a little fun fact for you. The group is then chased by orcs on wargs, with Radagast drawing them off. Gandalf leads them through a stone passage to Rivendell, as the wargs and orcs above are slain by elven riders. Elrond shows up and discloses the map's indication of a secret door that will be visible only on Durin's day. And now I have to rant just a little bit, okay? And I'm going to try my best not to be too angry about it. Huge pet peeve of mine is, and I mentioned this earlier, I hate when they have overly coincidental things that happen in the movies, or in any movie in particular. Like in this scene, Elrond says that the map can only be viewed by the moon that was present on the day the map was made. And by golly, wouldn't you fucking know it, the weirdest thing happened, and it just so happens to be the same fucking moon out as they are reading the fucking map, okay? I hate it. I hate that shit.
Gandalf, wizard power.
I think it took a couple weeks in Rivendell before they could read it. But yes, it was all, that, wow, it just so happens it can only be read on this specific day. You guys got really lucky.
Like, I when I say this, like, I feel like Nick when I complain about this. Because this was his fucking complaint of Game of Thrones. Like, okay, like, I'm not saying you have to give us like 20 minutes of a fucking movie and tell me, oh, this is 5 weeks later or whatever. Like, you just give me a little something, a little conversation, and then just make it in passing. Hey, it's been 3 weeks, the fucking moon's here, something like that. It feels overly lazy when they just go, oh, look at that, it's the moon that we need.
Even do like
right
a
when
day
they're fucking
or
reading
two.
it.
Like Elrond goes, yeah, man, it's moon runes. They can only be read on the day that they were written under the same moonlight. And then they're all like, crap, man. So they're all sitting around with their feet propped up, eating salads, pissed off because they don't have any meat in Rivendell. And then like a day or two later, Elrond's like, guys, I can fucking read them now. Like, come check it out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What was that, Creston?
Yes. The moon runs. Come to the fountain quick.
I get that it is a small thing to nitpick, but goddamn, it fucking aggravates me. And all I could think about was Nick when I was doing it. So continuing on, Gandalf talks with the White Council, Elrond, Galadriel, and Saruman the White about his involvement with the dwarves, explaining the presence Radagast encountered, and expresses mild suspicion that this necromancer is the Dark Lord. The others are skeptical, believing Sauron to have been defeated forever, and that this necromancer is not a true threat. Two things. I need more of Cate Blanchett as Galadriel in all these movies.
The way that it was filmed, it looked like Gandalf needed a lot more of Cate Blanchett also, because he was eye-fucking her hard in that scene.
He was about that life.
I mean, can we blame him, honestly?
When she left, he looked devastated.
Right?
Damn it, this was the time it was supposed to happen.
I was supposed to give you my staff. So, despite appearing in all three movies, Cate Blanchett was actually only on set for 8 days of the production. So, a little fun fact for y'all. Elsewhere at Weathertop, the leader of the attacking orc party reports back to his master, Azog, of his failure, who then kills the unfortunate orc. Azog then issues a bounty upon Thorin's head and races off with the rest of his party.
I didn't even realize that was Weathertop.
So, I will say this. I had all these notes, like the recap already written out. I was just typing my notes in between as the scenes were happening, which is fucking a game changer for me, by the way. Because typically I'm writing them on the back of the piece of paper and I can't read my handwriting worth of shit. So I already had this fun fact there. And when I saw it, I was like, that is fucking Weathertop.
I didn't even make the connection.
I didn't either.
So yeah, it's kind of a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. Azog then issues a bounty upon Thorin's head and races off with the rest of his party. Against the council's wishes, Gandalf sends Bilbo and the dwarves towards the Misty Mountains. While passing through the mountains, Bilbo and the dwarves encounter a battle between 3 stone giants and are forced to take refuge in a cave. So this is kind of what I want to talk about, which is why I'm saying this. And you mentioned it earlier as well, Nick. The film feels a little disconnected at times, and at first I thought it was the writing. I was like, this just fucking feels weird. And when I started kind of like honing in on it, I'm like, this feels like short stories. Like it feels like little adventures in one grand adventure kind of thing. Like the best way I can describe it is like, you know, when you watch like a 22 episode season, like we'll use Arrow, for example, since I've already used that on this episode. You know, there's that overarching villain, but then there's like 4 or 5 episodes thrown in there that has nothing to do with the villain, and it's just like little adventures that they go on. So that's kind of the gist I was getting. And then when you said that, it kind of confirmed what I was thinking, that this is kind of just short stories of an adventure, and that would explain why it's like that throughout the entire movie. I don't know. How do y'all feel that translated to the movie? Like the short story aspect of it and the smaller adventures, because like I said, it feels a little disconnected to me.
I'd say it's fairly accurate to the book as far as like different segments of different adventures, like you were saying. Like there's definitely like a build up, a climax, and then like the relief after each one of these little mini adventures. So I feel like they captured those for sure.
Yeah, my issue is not with the short story format. It's the tonal shift between dwarf and hobbit side of the story versus the necromancer side of the story. Because the dwarf hobbit side is kind of lighthearted. They go on an adventure, something happens, they all get saved or whatever, and they move on. And it's all kind of just lighthearted fun. And then you swap over to the orc and goblin side, and you swap over to the necromancer side, and it's all murder and blood and death and doom, and it's just the tone is just totally different throughout these movies based upon where you're looking at it from.
I mean, at least for the first movie, I will agree with that. So elsewhere, Azog and his orcs follow the dwarves' trail to the Misty Mountains. While the company sleeps, Bilbo decides to leave and return to Rivendell after talking to Bofur, who believes in him. He is overheard by Thorin, who believes he has been proven right that the Hobbit is not up to the quest. But before Bilbo can leave, they are captured by goblins and taken to their leader, the Goblin King. Bilbo was separated from the dwarves right after their capture and encounters Gollum, who accidentally drops a mysterious ring while killing a stray goblin to feed on. Picking up the ring and placing it in his pockets, Bilbo finds himself confronted by Gollum. Really, really dig this scene. Okay,
this is the best scene in the trilogy.
That makes me sad. I mean, granted, it is a fucking great scene, okay? Look, I'm always here for more Gollum and Andy Serkis. You know, I made that little comment earlier about Sir Ian McKellen. Maybe, you know, it takes him a little while to kind of get into things, but it was also kind of him being on a different stage. Andy Serkis doesn't fucking miss a beat here, guys. Like, that dude is fucking god tier in terms of acting, and to me, I don't know, man. Like this might be some of his best stuff out of the 4 movies that we've watched so far.
Both of them on this scene, though, they both acted their ass off on this scene, and it's like I made the comment earlier that Bilbo steals the show in every scene that he's in, but then you got Andy Serkis playing the counterpart to him, and it's like, who can win this match? I mean, it was perfectly played by both of them, pulled almost identically out of the book, and just brought it to light.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll take whatever I can get of Andy Serkis as Gollum. It is just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Like his, I don't know, like his facial expressions that he was using, and then it didn't seem like it seemed like he was more Smeagol, more so than Gollum in this particular movie. But when he's answering those riddles, like the fucking acting is just fantastic.
Did you guess any of the riddles by yourself?
Fuck no. I'm from Mississippi, sir. I can't guess any of that shit. I'm like, I can drive a car, okay? Or do this podcast. So, speaking of the riddle game, they play one, and wagering that Bilbo will be shown the way out if he wins, or eaten by Gollum if he loses, which was a funny aspect of it. After Bilbo wins by asking Gollum what he has in his pocket, Gollum realizes Bilbo has stolen the ring and attacks him. Then we kind of go to different side. We little editing there. Gandalf arrives and saves the dwarves from the goblins, and they then fight their way out of Goblet Town, killing the Goblet King. During their escape, Bilbo discovers the ring grants him invisibility and evades a furious Gollum, following him to find the way out and deciding out of pity not to kill him, despite having the chance to do so. Bilbo rejoins the group once he sees them. After hearing Thorin voice his doubts, he will return, keeping the ring he found a secret. So at this point, we finally start getting some character arcs that are kind of not, I wouldn't say complete or anything like that, but they're starting to come around. Okay. Great character relationship development here, as Thorin has hated Bilbo the entire fucking movie. And now that Bilbo has returned to help them take back their home, he's starting to gain Thorin's respect. And then in just a few minutes from this particular scene, they're fucking homies, right? I do think with this relationship, they could have hammered it out a little bit better in terms of, like, don't just tell me. Like, I feel like you got little hints more so towards the back half of the movie that he didn't like them. But, like, that mid portion of the movie, they didn't really go into that character relationship whatsoever. So I wish they would have kind of developed it a little bit better, but I'm not going to sit here and nitpick the fuck out of it. I think it's a good little arc for this particular movie. What do y'all think?
I am disappointed, and this will be brought up in future movies. Bilbo's arc is finished by the end of this movie.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he has gone from the I don't want to be on this adventure, I want to stay at home, to being the unexpected hero, and he does not develop further from this point on.
So I will offer a rebuttal. Okay, offer a rebuttal. If he doesn't have that character arc in this one, then what's the fucking point of continuing on at that point? You know.
But from this point on, he's a flat line. And from this point on, he's not really used in the story anymore.
Okay. We're jumping into future spoilers.
But yes.
I mean, what do you think, Preston?
I mean, I guess I could say he definitely flattens out, but there are definitely some spots in the second and third movie where he's definitely a big part of them. You know, I don't want to drop any spoilers, but there's two specifically. One is, has to do with barrels in a river. And the other one has to do with, sneaking to the lake town with the Arkenstone. There's a couple of spots.
So continuing on with the end of the movie, the moment of triumph is cut short as they are ambushed by Azog and his hunting party. After taking refuge in cliffside trees before the wargs uproot most of them, the final tree is partially uprooted, leaving most of the company hanging over the cliffside. Thorin then charges Azog in an attempt to save the others with the dopest fucking score when he's fucking walking on the fucking the tree, and it has like that opera shit going on. bro, so fucking good. Let's fucking go. And then it lasts all of 5 seconds.
No.
I was so fucking disappointed.
Yeah, and I didn't like that was reused music from the trilogy.
I don't care. Fuck, it was good then.
And
It was good now.
and it wasn't even reused hero music. That was villain music they used for it.
Look, I have no answers for you. Okay, it sounded fucking sexy, and I liked it.
And he had the Aragorn the Aragorn stance from the end of Fellowship when he's walking out, just like I'm a wreck shit, and it didn't he didn't pull it off.
No, he did not.
Okay. All right. To be fair, you are right. But again, apples to oranges, okay? That's like one of the best scenes in the entire trilogy, in my opinion, and you can't really compare that to that.
No, I agree with you about that music, though. The
Yeah.
slow, like, all right, it's time to kick some ass. Hops down off
And then he
the
fucking gets his ass kicked in like 5 seconds.
and he gets smoked, and he's like, hey, guys, I fucked up.
I made a mistake. And the whole time I'm just like, World Star? He fucking gets put his ass on the ground. God damn. So he gets badly wounded and knocked to the ground. Bilbo defends Thorin from being killed, and as Azog's other orcs move in, everybody rushes in and attacks them, and a fight ensues. The group is then saved by eagles, who fly them to safety on the Karok? I don't know what the fuck that is. I didn't write this. What?
Karok.
Oh, I'm glad you. I'm glad you recognized what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Gandalf wakes the unconscious Thorin, who finally accepts Bilbo for his courage and bravery. As the party sees the destiny of their journey, the lonely mountain in the distance, Smaug awakens. The movie kind of ends, kind of like Fellowship of the Ring, honestly. Like not. Okay, hold on. Before people jump in the fucking comments section, I'm not saying it's a good, because it's fucking not, okay? The end of the Fellowship is fucking pristine. This one, I mean, it's okay. It's okay. But in terms of like beat for beat what they're doing, there's a battle and they're looking off into the horizon, and that's the set of the trilogy. I mean, fucking beat for beat.
Beat for beat, Thorin walks out like Aragorn, except Thorin gets his ass kicked.
He's the poor man.
Poor
The
man's
Dollar
version
Tree.
of Aragorn. The Dollar Tree version.
All right, so I want to talk about the CGI.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so the Goblin King scene, the extreme overuse of CGI for everybody, and the horrible physics involved, and the fact that at this point you can pretty much tell the dwarves are invincible. Because they fall into a damn canyon surfing on a bridge the entire time. And then there's no live action hero or no live action villain. Every villain is CGI. There's no makeup, there's no nothing. It's just CGI monsters.
They did a good job with the Goblin King with that fucking nutsack chin he had.
Dude.
That thing was creepy as fuck.
But like you go,
Bruh.
these are trying to be menacing creatures or whatever else like that. Like think about the Cauliflower Man in Return of the King.
Yeah. No, the Goblin King.
Every single orc that you see
immediately.
Yeah. It's just
Pat, sweep. It's like, all right, well, that guy's done. Now we just gotta leave.
I look, I hate that I'm kind of agreeing with you on this.
I mean, I absolutely hate CGI. If you can do it with practical effects, do it with practical effects. CGI is a cop-out.
So it didn't take me out of the movie, the CGI. Like there was a couple times I looked at it, I was like, man, this, like
is it
even with this being
movie was filmed behind a green screen?
Yeah. Look, I'm not gonna sit here and say it was. Again, gonna compare it to the OG trilogy. OG trilogy did it the best. Okay, with the combination of all of it. Like I definitely fucking knew that it was CGI, but like it didn't. Some of the CGI didn't look rough to me, to where it took me out of the movie. As far as the villains all being monsters and shit like that, it didn't really bother me at all. But I did notice the whole physics aspect that was being broken in this fucking movie. Like Bilbo when he fell into the cave where he met Gollum. That dude, I mean, you fell forever, man. Like, how did you fucking not get hurt? But then we have the what you mentioned, the dwarves fell through. I will say this: they fell and then they hit a stopping point, and then they fell a little bit further. So it kind of stopped the fall a little bit. Okay.
Not a single dwarf fell though. Like they just surfed down this cliff inside of a mountain
on that fucking platform. That was a little unrealistic.
Yeah.
Hey man, like they're fucking savages. What can you say?
These are moon platforms. You can like on the same moon that they were made.
I mean, just throw in there in some point, because they kind of they mentioned in the movie, and they mentioned it a lot in the books about how hobbits are very light of foot and very quiet and can sneak around anywhere, and that's why Gandalf chose a hobbit to be a burglar in the first place. If you're going to have these dwarves do these ridiculous acrobatic stunts and never fall down and surf down a mountainside and whatever, just say that they're very sure-footed in the movie in advance. So that way you're not just all of a sudden like, what the fuck is going on? Just give me a little tip beforehand that, hey, yeah, they're really sure-footed and they never fall down.
All right. I got another rebuttal for you, okay? They're in a cave. They're fucking dwarves, man. They know how to surf down some shit, okay? Like, they're used to it.
Is that like a pastime? Like it's a dwarf Olympic sport? Is cave surfing?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm pretty sure that's in the books, okay? Like, y'all go fucking read the books.
That's in the that's in the unfinished tales that they don't have access to.
All right. So, closing thoughts. Let's get our overall impressions and the score that we would give this particular movie. We'll start with you there, Creston.
A score on a scale of what?
1 to 5.
1 to 5?
Why don't we do 20 elven or
I'm going to give it 4 dwarfs, 3 men.
So does that mean like 4 dwarves? 4 dwarves means like I'm sure like 2 means like half. Like 2 makes a full person. So is that like 2 stars?
There were 7 dwarven rings.
I'll give it I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
I'm kind of surprised. I thought you would have given it a little bit higher, to be honest with you.
No, I'm not holding it on a pedestal. I just know that if I compare it to, the original trilogy, it doesn't live up to the expectations. And I just really enjoyed the story of the Hobbit being in Middle Earth. Honestly, to be honest with you, a lot of Nick's gripes are valid complaints. I kind of had to, take a step back and be honest with myself when I rewatched this shit. There's some points that were kind of rough, man. Kind of rough.
He's pausing the movie halfway through. He's like, "God damn it, Nick!
Damn it! I'm opening the book back up. I'm going back to
look.
The book.
That's what he fucking did with the Last Jedi, man. Fuck him. I came out of the Last Jedi. I'm like, bro, that was fucking good, right? And then I talked to Nick. He's like, fucking everything he says. I'm like, you're fucking right.
Poisons you with that pessimism, and then you go back on it. Like, God damn!
Fucking just ruined it. What about you, Nick?
I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5, so a 7 out of 10. All right. When it comes to being true to the book, I give it a 7 out of 10 for true to the book. Acting is good for the most part. The really issues that I'm knocking it on is the overuse of CGI and the constant tonal shift. There's no consistency to it in tone.
I've been sitting here since I finished watching the movie today thinking, what the fuck am I going to score this? Okay. On one hand, I love the story. I love the world, love the lore. I love just everything about Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings. So I'm like, I can't give it a low score, because I mean, even at its lowest point, I still fucking love it, all the source material and whatnot. But at the same time, it's hard not to compare it to the OG trilogy. It's very, very hard. With that being said, I'm going to take what both of y'all said, and I think the only issues that I really have with the movie is, one, I think the pacing at the very beginning of the movie is not very good. I think the first 45 minutes are a huge fucking drag, and then the movie picks up once they leave the Shire. And I'll stand by that, even with me being tired. I think they could have developed some of the dwarves a little bit better, because I honestly can't tell you any of their fucking names other than Thorin.
I was gonna bring that up also, but that was gonna be for future movies.
Yeah, like I don't know any of their names, and honestly, I could care less. They did not develop those characters whatsoever in this movie. But the three main characters, Gandalf, Thorin, and Bilbo, fucking great. Great. Love the acting from Martin Freeman. Gollum in this is a fucking highlight of the entire fucking movie. Hopefully not the trilogy, but it's a highlight of this particular movie. Look, it's not perfect by any means. I think it's good. I think it's a good movie. It's a solid watch. I'm gonna give it 3. I'm gonna go right there with Creston. If the first 45 minutes were just a little bit better, I'd give it a 3.5. But I'm gonna stick with a 3. Now the question is, the hardest part about rating movies, like y'all watch the One Bite Pizza reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So like when he goes on his first review, it's always the toughest, because then the next one he kind of compares to the first one, and then he's like, well, fuck, the first one's a little bit higher than that. So hopefully I don't have that issue going forward.
I will secure my 7. I will not change my 7 on this. I am keeping it a 7, and it's all downhill from here.
Oh, here we go, sir. Gonna be some spicy episodes. Go ahead and set like an additional 30 minutes just for rants and fucking arguments. But yeah, I'm gonna stick with 3 stars. I think it's a good movie, and I don't think it's any worse than what I remember it being when I watched it on TV years ago. I remember sitting there and going, I'll fucking watch it, and not hating it, not really loving it, but I enjoy it. 3 stars. So, with that being said, that is the conclusion of our deep dive into the first movie of the Hobbit trilogy. I'm still excited to watch the other 3 movies, especially at the third one for the first time. So it is what it is. The next movie that we are doing, The Desolation of Smaug, obviously the second movie in part of the trilogy. So y'all go ahead and watch that movie in preparation of this one, or in preparation of the next review. But with that being said, we appreciate y'all joining us, and if you would like to consider supporting us, we have links down below. Goes all of our social media accounts. Like, subscribe, do all that fucking bullshit. Would greatly help us kind of get our names out there with the podcast and all that. And yeah, we appreciate y'all joining us. And Creston and Nick, thank you yet again.
Go buy a shirt.
Creston, I'm fucking cold, man.
I'm freezing.
Do what?
You think you're cold? I'm fucking freezing.
Y'all are both in garages.
Yeah. Mine looks somewhat finished, though, in comparison to his.
I look like I'm in a cabin in the woods somewhere.
Dude, ice fishing somewhere.
This year. It's like, it's cold. I gotta stay here tonight. Sorry.
Look, I gotta respect Creston's commitment to the episode this week. All right.
Yeah, he's definitely the MVP for the
week. He's a real G, man. Real G. But all right, guys, that is going to be it from us. We will catch y'all next time on the next episode. Laters.